My entitled wife stands me up at the altar for our wedding, abandoning me in front of all of our family and friends and humiliating me in the process, only to then later show up that night, apologizing and saying that she still wants to try to get married. And I'm so hurt and broken over this, I simply don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I had been dating since she was 19 years old and I was 21. We've been through everything together and basically have grown up together. I've always known that when she really gets panicky, she tends to run away from things. In fact, she used to randomly break up with me and try to run away when we were very young, but we talked it through and got better at it. And she hasn't done anything like that for years now. Anyways, I proposed a year ago, and it was hardly a surprise. We had been discussing marriage for years. We both knew we were on board to do this, especially after she finished her master's degree and got a job in my city. I mean, everything was perfect. The past year has been very hectic in planning a wedding, since we're both from another country where grand weddings are the norm, and we had to fly people out and all this other logistics. About 2 to 3 months ago, the nerves really started to hit my girlfriend, and she tried to talk to me about it. I will acknowledge my faults here. She did try to bring it up to me that she was nervous, and the whole ordeal of a grand wedding was stressing her out. Ideally, she would have wanted a small destination wedding with a big party afterwards, but due to both of our families requesting a big wedding and inviting all their friends, we eventually just kind of gave in. She was also nervous about the commitment of marriage, as well as the finances and everything that comes along with it. All of this we had discussed before, but I guess she just needed some reassurance. However, in hindsight, I realize now that every time she brought it up to me before that she was anxious, I chalked it up to the normal cold feet people go through and would just be like, oh, it's gonna be fine, and I just kind of brushed it off. I was also stressed out with a lot of work to do before I could take my long leave, as well as planning and budgeting and all this other stuff. We both make very good money, but this wedding was going out of budget, and we didn't want to take any money from our parents. And honestly, all of it got pretty stressful for the both of us. She seemed a little jittery the night before as well, so I told her to just calm down and try to get some sleep. Mostly, I was just very, very excited to make her my wife, something I've been dreaming of since the day we started dating. She is the love of my life, and it was still hard to believe that she was choosing to marry me. I was the happiest man alive, but it all came crashing down as on the day of the wedding, she completely ghosted me and instead ran away from the wedding. And I was honestly blown away by what happened next. She left me a note apologizing and saying she couldn't do all this, and she just ran on the day of the wedding, mind you. I don't even know where she went. All of it unfolded so quickly, and it was almost like a movie. All our family members coming into my room while I was ready to walk out onto the altar, asking me where she is and all this other stuff. It was honestly pretty traumatic, and I ended up crying in front of all my family and friends. Our parents handled the guests, and all of it while I just went home heartbroken. And when I got there, she wasn't at home. I spent the entire day calling or texting her, and her phone was just switched off. She walked in at night at about 10 or 11 o'clock p.m. and just kept crying and apologizing. I told her to just go to sleep, and I need time to think about everything that happened. I am now at a point where I seriously don't know what to do anymore. She has apologized multiple times and wants me back, and says that she's even ready to do the whole grand wedding again, and she regrets having run away in a momentary lapse of judgment, as she puts it. She knows that she wants to be with me, but she just panicked and got cold feet. I can't imagine my life without her, but at the same time, my trust is completely broken. I don't understand why she couldn't just be more of an adult and tell me properly before the wedding, although she insists that she tried to. I feel completely disrespected and just heartbroken and completely humiliated that I had to go through all of that. I don't know if I should even forgive her. What if she just does this again and runs at some other important event like she did on the most important day of my life? What should I do? That is absolutely tragic, and it's absolute garbage. For context, this lady is 26 years old, and she waits until the morning of the wedding to dip and not show up in the first place. The fact that she tried to say, oh, I tried to talk to you about it, is an absolutely insane excuse in my opinion, and is not acceptable in the slightest. Her expressing her anxiety and saying, oh man, I'm nervous about this, is not in any way, shape, or form the same thing as her saying, oh my gosh, this is too much, I don't want to do this. That would be completely different. But her claiming, oh, I'm nervous and I'm a little panicky, without actually implicitly saying, hey, I don't want to get married right now, is completely disrespectful to you and the money that you put into this, as well as the fact that her family and your family all came together from different parts of the world just to try and come together for this wedding. She threw all of that out the window when she said, nope, I'm not going to show up for this. And then she has the audacity to show up later that night and just cry and apologize, as if that's going to make any of this better. So in my opinion, this is absolutely a deal breaker. And if I was in your shoes, I also would never feel like I could trust her again. I mean, what was she thinking? You wasted all of this money for nothing. She made a complete fool of you, and now she's like, okay, now I'm ready to get married. Like, are you kidding me right now? Overall, this is a crazy scenario to be stuck in, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. It also goes without saying that this is a massive red flag, and personally, I don't think I could marry someone who treated me like that on the most important day of my life. Like, that's unacceptable, and that really would be a deal breaker. So whatever you decide to do, hopefully it's for the best, and hopefully you think about yourself in this situation, because clearly she only thought about herself on the day of your wedding and decided to stand you up and humiliate you in front of everybody. And I think that really will be valuable in making your decision moving forward. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My partner of 5 years had an emotional affair with his ex, and after confronting him about that, I'm honestly not sure if our relationship is salvageable, and I don't know what to do. I want to start off by saying that I thought we were good. I honestly thought we were perfect. I saw a future with him. We always talked about building a life together. I just bought tickets and flights for our Valentine's Day trip, as well as for his birthday to go out of the country. Early on in our relationship, I had baggage and trauma from previous relationships, where past partners would talk to other women behind my back. In my other last relationship with another partner, I caught him writing letters to his ex. My last partner and I broke up, and a few months later, he got engaged to the ex that he was writing letters to. Now, my current partner knew all of this, and he was so kind and patient with me, helping me work through this early on in our relationship. Eventually, I trusted him. I really thought he was one of the good guys. He was my rock and my one and only. A few days ago, I had a mini stress breakdown because I found myself realizing I was doing a big amount of the chores and the errands around the house. I was upset at him about that. We talked about the chores and divvying up the mental load, but I also used this as an opportunity to let him know that I'd like more effort and support from him. I also noticed that he has been on his phone a lot more lately, and whenever I would come close to him, I noticed he would turn his phone over or quickly flip through his apps. I also remembered him smiling or laughing and just looking at his phone. I thought it was weird when he addressed all the other issues that I brought up, but not the phone one. I asked again, and he went back for a bit to think, then came over and said it was because he was doing a lot of journaling lately, and it would be embarrassing to show to anybody. And I asked him if he was including me in that statement. We left the argument after that. His family's holiday celebrations were today, and he wanted to go. I was still upset, and I said I wasn't going anymore, and he actually just left without me. Didn't even put up a fight like he usually does. He even left, came back because he forgot his camera, and then went back to it. I had a gut feeling, a very strong feeling inside me, which prompted me to log onto his computer and look through his messages. I was shaking from all the anticipation and the adrenaline, and that's when I saw it. I screamed. I broke down crying. He has been texting his ex, and it was 100% an emotional affair. He reached out at the end of November, and they were talking for about 2 to 3 weeks. At that point, my whole world turned around. He reached out first, and it was friendly at first. He just wanted to get closure. He said he missed the way they were able to talk and joke around. Friendly talk quickly turned into her getting all flustered from receiving messages, as well as wondering if they were secretly soulmates. He used to talk about me in the chat and how happy he was with me. She would then retort with a photo of her current partner. He later said, maybe we just don't talk about our partners for now. I'm not 100% comfortable if I'm being completely honest. And then all of the images and things he would send to me over text, he also sent to her. They were planning to meet up and talk at some point. They even acknowledged in the chat that this may be an emotional affair, and they even actively joked about it. Her current partner knew she was talking to mine, but I had no idea. Looking through the timestamps, the exact same time when I was upset, he messaged her, asking her if she had talked to me. She said no, and he said that we were having an argument and he was stressed. He was more worried about being caught than how I was feeling at the moment. He also told her about the argument, and it just feels weird and not right to joke about or complain about your partner to your ex. It feels very disrespectful. I mean, where was I throughout all this? I'm not proud of what I did, but after collecting all the proof, as well as a 23-minute long video of me scrolling through the messages, I rushed to pack a bag, and before leaving, I threw all his clothes on the ground, as well as his books on the ground and his luggage all over the place. I made sure not to do any permanent damage of any kind, but I wanted him to know. I was so close to blasting him all over social media with my proof, but I ended up not doing that. I wanted everyone to know so badly how horrible they've been and how much they've hurt me, but I didn't want to stoop to their level because I know I'm better than that, and I am much better than her. Their relationship had high highs and very low lows. It was incredibly toxic. They brought out the worst in each other, and she even would get physically aggressive with him. Why would he throw away all that we have for her? I'm so glad for my friends being there for me. I remember that night bawling to her, and one of the things I've said said was, well, what if he's texting or calling her right now? What's stopping him from doing this guilt-free or meeting up with her earlier? He must be back home from the Christmas party, right? Why hasn't he called me or texted me to see if I'm okay? I felt like I had already lost to her. She finally won and has him around his fingertips. The next morning, he finally messaged me. He asked me to talk, and we did eventually do that. He showed up looking pretty bad with puffed up eyes from crying, and I was surprised that I wasn't teared up as well because I must have cried it all out prior. We talked for about 6 hours. Even though I was fiercely angry, I gave him the space and the opportunity to explain his side, and I just listened. It's the usual cheater speech. He has been feeling not confident lately, felt like something was missing in our relationship, felt like he never got the closure from the previous relationship, and thus reached out. Intentions were to get closure and figure out what was missing, and to use that to better our relationship. He continued to talk to her because he wanted to make sure before they met for closure, it was on friendly terms. He then missed talking to her. She kept flirting and talking about catching feelings, and he reciprocated. He tried to blame me and say the past year of our relationship hadn't been great, but I pushed back, and I said to him, then why not talk to me or make an effort to grow this relationship? Why look elsewhere? He then tried to flip this and say I made a massive violation of trust by snooping around, and I said, so what? Isn't this justified? Also, would I have ever even known about this friendship if I hadn't snooped around? He said he wanted me to hear it directly from him, which is just great, just so I can get a watered down version of what's really going on. I then asked for his phone, and the real kicker here is while I was in a hotel, bawling my eyes out, no text or phone call came in sight of me. He was texting her about what had happened and was asking her for her advice. He tried to make it seem like a good thing by saying that she said he should talk to me tomorrow. And what, you weren't going to talk to me until she said you should? He said he was planning to anyways. So he's just trying to paint her in a better light and justify talking to her. His defense for talking to her was that he assumed that we were completely done as a couple. He reiterated that I'm perfect. He loves me and thinks about me all the time, and we had 90% good things going. And meanwhile, his ex only had 10% of good things. And he truly was just trying to figure out what that 10% was to try and better our relationship. He said he takes full accountability and made a giant mistake, and that he should have went to therapy instead. I told him to block her everywhere. I don't know if he was going to do it anyways, and maybe I didn't give him enough time to suggest it, but I can't believe I had to ask him to do it. So he did it everywhere, but then hesitated once he got to the messaging app. He had the audacity to ask if he could have one last phone call with her just to get closure, but I said no. He pushed back again, and I said you can only text her, or if you do call her, you need to do it right in front of me. He hesitated and waited. I stood up and said you either do that or you leave. I will not be second place to anybody. I deserve to be first. He then sent her a message and blocked her everywhere. But him talking to her after we had fought and seeing how hurt I was, and then asking if he could have one last phone call was extremely hurtful, in addition to the emotional cheating messages. I know I've got a lot going on. I have a wonderful support system, and if I may toot my own horn, I know I'm beautiful, smart, caring, funny, and driven, and I know I won't have any trouble finding someone out there who will see all this in me and not take it for granted. But 5 years, we had so many wonderful memories and adventures. Our lives were intertwined, our friend groups melded, and his family loves me to pieces. Why did he risk throwing this all away? What was he thinking, if at all? And even though I know I will be okay, and I'm not afraid of being alone or adjusting, I just don't know why I really want this to work after all he has done to me and continue to do to me. Do I believe him that he's sorry and he wants to work on our relationship? He looked remorseful and understood what he's done. He's already set up a meeting with a relationship counselor and is coming up with a plan on how to rebuild our relationship and my trust. I'm glad he is making steps to make this right and acknowledge his mistakes, and I want to see if this really will work. But I keep flip-flopping between if I'm being horribly naive and stupid, or maybe this will work and make us stronger than before. But I really do love him, and if with the right amount of time and effort, I know deep down I have the capacity to forgive him. I'm honestly lost. My emotions keep fluctuating between anger, hurt, mourning, and hopeful. What really sucks about this is whether I do leave or if I stay and we work on this, I'm going to be hurt either way. I know I did nothing wrong, and yet I still have to be hurt from all of this, and for a long time. You have a lot more grit than I would. If my partner had cheated on me, and yes, he absolutely cheated on you, I would probably kick them to the curb and say, you know what, I don't want you in my life. So you must really love him and be a stronger person than I would be, because I don't think I could possibly face my partner if they did something like this to me. I mean, he was so obsessed with talking to his ex-girlfriend once again, basically getting her permission and advice on how to run your relationship, and that's just so toxic. So hopefully this all works out for you, because the way he he acted is unbelievably unfair, and you truly do deserve so much better. My female colleague is starting to act weird towards me after we've spent several years being really good friends at work, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. So I sit in one office with a married colleague. We are both lawyers for one government department. We clicked instantly from the first moment and became really good work friends and colleagues. We have sat together for more than 3 years so far. We used to talk to each other for multiple hours per day. We went to lunch together, we helped each other work-wise, and we exchanged birthday and Christmas presents. But our friendship existed only at work, and we both were totally fine with that. But this year, everything changed. Our work department hired 2 new employees, 2 young women, and my colleagues started to spend more time with them, and I was totally fine with that. I even introduced her to one of the new girls, whom I have known from a different workplace, because I thought they might become good work friends. My colleague and these 2 other women started to hang out together during work in another office, and I started to notice. My colleague also started to change her behavior towards me. After one stupid conflict during which we did not speak to one another for several days, I noticed that she started to look at me differently. She had a big smile whenever she came to work and entered our office. She started to tease me more often, and she would start talking to me about her kids without me asking. And at times, it seemed like she was really demanding my help and attention. She was asking me to come close and to look at stuff on her computer, and she would become irritated when I did not respond to her immediately, stuff like that. However, it was not annoying to me, and it did not affect my work. To be honest, I started to feel afraid that she might be developing feelings for me, but I would never start anything with someone who is in a committed relationship. A few weeks later, she started to become really on and off with me, meaning that she would be friendly on Monday, we would talk as friends again, and she would then be distant on other days, rather talking with the 2 women I mentioned. I thought to myself that she probably replaced me emotionally with the new girls, so the dynamic of our work friendship changed as a result. It started to look like as if she was trying to push me away emotionally, so I just started to mirror her. I stopped asking her personal questions, I started to go to lunch with other colleagues, and much more. One important thing is that recently, she completely stopped asking me personal and even work-oriented questions, and became very easily annoyed with me whenever I asked her why she is sometimes kind of rude and disrespectful towards me all of a sudden. But questions like this seem to only push her further away from me, so she is actively ignoring me as a result, even though she looks to be comfortable around me. She even said several months ago that she feels the safest with me. Last week, I asked her if she would prefer to sit with someone else instead, and she told me, "Do whatever you want, I don't care." And after that question, she did not speak to me for a few days. She would not even say hi or bye. Basically, she was giving me the silent treatment. Today, she started to talk with me again, but she is still very distant. My other colleague told me that she would prefer to continue sitting with me, but it's quite hard to be around a person who is treating me as if I don't matter to her anymore, even as a colleague or a person. Now I honestly don't know what to do at this point. She is treating me as if she was actively trying to ignore me or punish me for something that was not communicated. It's not affecting me work-wise, but on a personal level, it's pretty triggering because I liked and still do like her as a friend and a colleague, but she completely changed her attitude towards me. She acts normal around everyone else except for me. It's important to note that even I don't want to sit with someone else, but sometimes it's hard to accept that she simply does not want to discuss things with me in order to have some kind of repair on our work relationship. I'm just giving her space at the moment, and I'm focused on my work and other people there, but it still bothers me how weird things are between us, considering the fact that we share one office. Would there be any way to improve our work relationship? What would be the best thing to do in this situation? What should I do? This seems like one of those situations where you definitely should really just take the hint and move on and maybe find another place to sit at work, because this lady's being very off and on and most definitely was trying to flirt with you. And I bet you the fact that you didn't reciprocate is probably the reason she's upset. And you said it yourself, she's married, and I don't think you should waste your time with someone who's acting like this. And sure, I totally understand that you want to have friends at work, but you know what? You can find friends outside of work and just make that place the place you go to make money, and then you go home and do your own thing. Or if anything, find different people in the office to be friends with. It sounds like you've attempted to give her space, you've tried to check in and be kind to some degree, but she is the one that's pushing you away. And in my opinion, if someone shows you exactly who they are, you should believe them the first time around. So I think you should believe her when she's acting like she just doesn't care about you, because that probably is exactly how she feels. So hopefully you can find a new place to sit at work, and you can find other people to befriend at work. It's unfortunate, and it does happen, but I think you're better off finding another way to be happy at work than to try and rely on somebody who clearly does not care about you. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, use the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out in the description below and subscribe.